Hey gang, in today's video, we're going to talk about mental health and mental illness, and we're going to get pretty real. So if this is something that you struggle with or that you have problems with or don't want to hear anything about, then this probably isn't the video for you. But if you have struggled with mental health, then maybe I can help give you some tips on how to build and maintain a writing career when dealing with neurodivergence and mental illness. So if that's something that you think could be helpful, strap in. We're going to get really real. And if it's not, then I'll see you next time. No hard feelings. Hey there. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if this is your first time here. I'm John Hartness. I'm the founder and publisher of Falstaff Books and the author of 42 novel-length works, including Quincy Harker Demon Hunter, Bubba the Monster Hunter, and the Black Knight Chronicles, among others. And I've also struggled with depression and mental illness and suicidal ideation for over 35 years at this point. The first time I remember having any issues with thoughts of self-harm was in high school, about my 10th grade year probably. And it's been a struggle off and on for the past, what is that, 37 years? Yeah. So this is something that I have fought my entire life. And I figure there's probably a lot of y'all out there who also have issues with mental health. I am diagnosed with major depressive disorder and bipolar disorder, bipolar 2 to be specific. That's the less likely to go into a violent rage flavor of bipolar, and it also typically presents in adults as opposed to bipolar 1, which frequently comes on in your youth. I don't know if I was bipolar my whole life or not, but I can definitely attest that I have dealt with depressive thoughts and intrusive thoughts since I was very young. Um, I am also diagnosed with ADHD, although you can probably tell by my general shape that it's more just an ADD. There's not a whole lot of hyperactivity going on. But yeah, I have attention deficit disorder, and it was only a few years ago, maybe a decade ago, that I was diagnosed with that. So I am part of a generation of people that are terrible at getting diagnosed, and from a from an upbringing where I'm not very good at asking for help. That's not how it's not how your average Gen X redneck is raised. So getting a diagnosis in my 40s was a pretty big step. It crystallized some things that I had developed as coping mechanisms throughout my entire life. But to talk about how I maintain a writing career with ADHD and with bipolar disorder, there's basically three things that we're dealing with. Um, Bipolar disorder is sometimes I'm manic and hyper and ready to go and just do all the things and go, 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 go. And then there are the major depressive episodes where getting out of bed takes about an hour's worth of energy. And I don't know what it's going to be from day to day, honestly. My depressive episodes are more prevalent than my manic episodes. And typically I can typically maintain a fairly even keel, depending on the news of the day. Um, There's more day-to-day work managing my ADHD, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But let's start with bipolar. Um, I'm currently not on medication for either of these conditions. I don't take anything for my ADHD because the things that I have taken, I don't like how they make me feel. And some of them are contraindicated for people with high blood pressure. And I've had a couple of cardiac issues this year. And you don't want to take speed, for example, when you're having heart issues already. So I'm dealing with all of this right now through the coping mechanisms that I've built up. I don't recommend that you go through all of this. Please don't construe anything I'm going to say as medical or psychiatric or psychological advice. This is what I can put together for me. You should consult a healthcare professional. I have recently had a conversation with my family physician about my mental health and whether or not I need to be back on antidepressants. And we're not there yet. Could happen. I've spent time off and on antidepressants for about the past 10 years. And sometimes they just seem to build up a resistance and stop working. So I go off them for a while and then things get bad and I go back on them. And for me, if I am unmedicated, as I am now, um, I need to look at myself and my activities and my actions and how everything is making me feel to stay on top of whether or not I'm okay or not. And if I'm not, I need to put into practice some of these other things. My standard writing goal, my typical Monday through Friday goal is 2,000 words a day. That's roughly a chapter for a book that I'm working on. My chapters tend to be about 2,000 words. I've talked about that in a video, in a prior video about my writing process. My chapters tend to be about 2K. So if I write a chapter a day, I knock out a novel in 3 months, and that's pretty good. Well, when I'm depressed, I can't often hit 2,000 words in a day. So I have to adjust my goals. I'm fortunate that I own the publishing company that produces most of my work, so I don't really have deadlines. I put my work into the production schedule when it fits. That gives me the freedom to slow down when I have to. Not everyone's going to have this opportunity, but if you're self-publishing or you're unpublished, you certainly do. And you should take advantage of that if you have that freedom, if you are not locked into release dates. And honestly, even if you are, I don't know a publisher who's not going to respond favorably to an author saying, I'm sorry, this book is going to be late. I'm having a really tough time mental health wise. Can I have an extension? Publishers are human beings. The answer is almost always going to be yes. So if you find yourself in a situation where you have a book under contract and you're going through a terrible mental health time and you can't meet your deadline, just talk to people. But for me, when I'm having a depressive episode, first I have to adjust my word count goals downward. 2, I have to scale down my expectations of my productivity. I make a to-do list every day. Every day. And we'll get into my list and why I'm such a list nerd later on when we talk about my ADHD. I try to make sure that I can scratch 10 things off my to-do list every single day. Well, when I'm having a depressive episode, I don't change the number of things, but I change the things that go on the list. I always want to get 10 things done, but if I'm in a good headspace or if I'm in a manic headspace, I don't list every single thing I have to do. Like empty the dishwasher doesn't make the list some days. Taking the trash out to the curb for pickup on a Monday night that doesn't make the list unless I'm in a depressive episode. If I am, I need the wins. So I list everything. That gives me a sense that I am still accomplishing things. Maybe I'm not doing 2,000 words a day, but write a chapter isn't the line on my to-do list. Write is the item on my to-do list. So if I've written 500 words, I've written. I haven't written a word today. It's Sunday. I typically don't write on the weekends. I wrote 1,000 words yesterday and called that pretty good because I've been dealing with a depressive episode for the last few weeks. I'm coming off of Dragon Con, and that's a huge, exciting convention that I had a great time at. And there's always a little letdown for that show when I get home. And I went kind of downhill. So I needed to make sure that I was listing everything. And then I try hard to give myself some grace. That's one of the hardest things, by the way. I'm self-employed. I'm incredibly fortunate that I can make a living off of selling my books. I'm incredibly fortunate that I don't have to work for anybody else currently. But that means I have to keep working. That means I have to keep hustling. But when I'm in a depressive episode, I sometimes can't. And it's important for me to understand that maybe I spend a day watching all of season 2 of Stargirl. Maybe I lose a day watching a lot of football videos on YouTube or pro wrestling videos on YouTube. And that happens. It's just a thing that's gonna happen sometimes. And I'm lucky enough that my fans will wait and that they'll still be there to buy the book when I get it finished. But I need to recognize the episode first. That's also the key to the flip side of when I'm in a manic episode. And because I'm not tremendously active in my day-to-day life, I mean, really, I'm sitting in a chair recording a video. I sit in a chair to write and edit. I'm not doing a whole lot of jumping jacks. God, that would be horrible to watch. But that means that I may not recognize the onset of an episode of mania until I'm well into it. And a lot of the indicators that I'm in a manic episode have to do with my demeanor and my temper. I get mean when I'm manic. It's certainly not something I'm proud of, but I'm short-tempered and I don't give other people as much grace as I try to in a normal time. So when I'm having a manic episode, it's not just sit there and write 4,000 words a day as fast as I can, as hard as I can, and go, 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 go. That's not it. There's some of that. I'm not saying that I don't try to make hay when the sun shines on a manic episode. I do. But I am saying that I need to keep a tight rein on myself because bipolar disorder in a manic episode, coupled with the hyperfocus that comes from ADHD at times, can lead to sitting for 6 hours typing and not realizing that I need to pee and maybe eat, and that the cats need to eat, and that I was supposed to go pick up a prescription for my wife. So the list becomes just as important when I'm in a manic episode as when I am depressed, because the list tells me these are the things that you really have to do, so don't get distracted much. And I want to be sure that I'm giving other people grace and I'm not setting unreasonable expectations for them. Just because tomorrow I feel like I'm Superman and can leap tall manuscripts with a single bound does not mean that I should suddenly expect all of my editors to be working at triple speed. And that's something that I've had to learn to recognize in my own struggles with bipolar disorder. So, trying to remember to spread the grace around when I'm manic is really important. And that was actually the thing that led me to getting diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Was I realized that sometimes it was all I could do to get out of bed, and sometimes I was just snapping at my wife because she wasn't being superhuman like I was. And I was like, wait a minute, why is this thought process week to week flippity floppitying? That's not normal and it's not healthy. So I went and saw a doctor and got diagnosed. And hey, yeah, you're right. Yeah, thanks. I hate being right. I'm kidding. I'm a publisher. I love being right. But when you couple both of these with ADHD, the list is your life. There's notes, there's lists. If I didn't write it down, it never happened. If I'm talking to somebody and we talk about having a great idea and I'm like, yeah, great, text me that. I'm not saying text me that because I'm being high and mighty and blah, blah, blah. A text from another person triggers a different response in my brain than just me making a note that I may not ever go back and look at the note. But the list is key. Whether I'm just listing the big things because I'm manic, or I'm listing every little thing because I need the dopamine hit of successfully completing something because I'm depressed, the list is everything. I work in spurts. And for my brain, about 45 minutes is my focal length. I know that's not what focal length means. I was a freaking lighting designer for years. I know what a focal length is. But I have about 45 minutes of focus at a time, and then I need something else to grab my attention. That's why I try to keep Zoom calls and meetings to under an hour, because after an hour, I'm just completely off the rails and real work probably isn't happening anymore. We're probably going to talk about some TV show that I'm very interested in, or a comic book, or the new Dungeon Crawler Carl Kickstarter edition. By the way, have y'all seen this thing? It's gorgeous. I mean, come on. It's Princess Donut. See? See? I've been shooting this video for 20 minutes. Um, it took me about 20 minutes of prep time to get my notes ready. And now, poof, I'm gone. Hey, buddy. And I mean, I also have this giant floof of distraction wandering around, playing with toys and being beautiful. My cats also are a huge help in managing my depression, because having, yes, you're beautiful, having anything that loves you completely and unconditionally, and especially something that can't actually speak to you and ask questions, I find it really helpful. Um, I've been married for 30 years and I love my wife a lot. But when I'm having mental health troubles, she wants to talk to me about it. I don't necessarily want to talk about it. So it's a lot more helpful sometimes to be able to just pet a big floofy kitty. And I wish that I could pan down, but my tripod setup doesn't allow for that, because he is just sprawled out as comfy as he can be right now, aren't you, buddy? For me, it's about coping mechanisms. And That's because for me, medication has limited efficacy and variable efficacy from year to year. So I have to pay close attention to my mental well-being. And I have to sometimes bow out of things I really enjoy because I don't have the bandwidth. You are going to have to come up with how you manage your mental health. Maybe making lists isn't something that's useful for you. Maybe getting a cat isn't useful for you. Do not eat that, you big goofy bastard. Thank you. But maybe it will. The point for this video is not to tell you how you should or shouldn't manage your mental health. The point of this video is to tell you that I've spent the majority of my life struggling with depression and with mental health and neurodiversity issues, and I've still written 42 books. And I make my living, I feed my family off of my book sales. So you can do this. You have the tools or can acquire the tools to cope with mental illness. I'm not saying tough it out. I'm saying talk to a professional, get the help that you need, and your mental health issues and your neurodivergence does not need to define your career, and it certainly doesn't need to hold you back. I know very few authors who are neurotypical or don't suffer from some sort of mental health issues. The most successful ones are sometimes absolutely as jacked up as everybody else. Oh, wait, trauma as well. There may very well be neurotypical writers who are also deeply traumatized. We're all working through some stuff. These are the things that I'm working through every single day. This is how I work through it every single day. You can find your path and you can be a successful writer no matter what challenges your brain chemistry or how you're wired or your circumstances have given you. You just have to be too stubborn to quit. So, we will leave some links in the description for places you can get help. If you have other links for good sources for help for folks who are neurodivergent or have mental health issues, please leave them down in the comments. And till next time, take care of yourself, okay?